you'd be surprised. People are attracted to people, to businesses who actually know who they are and
Mm-hmm.
actually believe in a thing, right? You don't have to push your worldview on everyone. You don't have to hand out tracts in the office. You
Mm-hmm.
just need to be confident in who you are and what you believe. So I'd say give the hiring process the time and energy that it deserves, and live your values out loud in that hiring process.
Hey, just a quick note before the episode begins. If you came here wanting to learn more about how to hire great people that are a great fit for your culture, because that's really what this episode's about, then jump to the 24-minute mark if you want to get right to the practical piece of this. But the first 24 minutes are our discussion with Andrew about some of the past companies he's owned and exits he's had, experience he's had as an entrepreneur. So if you are interested in that piece of it, then just let it play and we'll get into it. But this is a great episode. Hope you enjoy. So one of the most, if not the most difficult pieces of running a company is hiring good people. That new person you let into your company could bring your company to the next level, but they could also completely burn it to the ground. So today's guest is Andrew Crapuchettes. He's had 6 previous exits and is currently the founder and CEO of Red Balloon, where their slogan is, quote, helping non-woke businesses find the right talent to grow their organization and culture. And we're probably going to ruffle a few feathers today, but I'm good with it. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Thanks for having me, Lee. And I've spent the last 3 years ruffling feathers, so I'm very comfortable with it. It's easy for me. So.
Yeah, that's good. I like it. I like it. Okay, so as I always do with my guests, give me a peek into your background. 6 previous exits. Who is Andrew?
Yeah, well, I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and really had some wonderful opportunities there. My dad was an early computer programmer at Stanford University, so kind of early in the tech scene a very long time ago. I'm 47, just for context.
Okay.
So by the time I turned 16, Dad had already taught me how to program a bit, and I got my first job at a tech business, which was amazing. And while my friends were headed off to college and totally broke, I was driving a convertible Mustang and traveling all over the world, doing really cool stuff for a variety.com businesses in the Bay Area. So I wasn't executive, but I got to watch what $32 million of venture capital money does to a business and how it totally changes the culture, totally changes what you're trying to do as a business. And I think in some unhealthy ways, as a side note. And you can take VC money and it can be healthy, but it can also be very unhealthy for your business and totally change your culture and dynamic and all the other things. So
yeah.
Anyway, great opportunities, but at the ripe old age of 22, 6 years into this or whatever it was, I was kind of burned out. I was in a spot where I was tired of working 80 to 100-hour weeks. I didn't really have a life. I didn't have a girlfriend. I was like, what's the point of my life anyway? So I decided, and I got tired of traffic and liberals, and the Bay Area has lots of both. So I decided to move to beautiful Idaho, where I live now. And I actually worked remote for a year from Idaho. So I was an early adopter and leaving California and working remote. That worked great, but then the business that I was working for ran out of money and went out of business. This is around 2000. So I just figured, well, I'm a Bay Area hotshot. I'll just get myself a new job up here in Idaho. And it turns out little town Moscow, Idaho doesn't actually have that same economy and labor market that the San Francisco Bay Area did. So I couldn't find a job. And so I'm like, well, if I can't find a job, it means other people can't find a job. So I should make jobs. I kind of went on this tirade of building businesses that created jobs in our community. In fact, one of our businesses, our initial business goal, and this is a stupid business goal, but here it is, was 50 people earning over $50,000 a year in Moscow, Idaho. And our thinking on that was, if we have, you're going to have people above 50, you're going to have people below 50, but 50 at 50 tells you that you're actually starting to move the needle on this little town. Because before we did that, I mean, you could basically work at the university. We have University of Idaho in town, or Walmart, or the hospital, or Domino's, right? There just weren't really good, meaningful, family sustaining jobs. And I thought, well, I've been given skills and ability. I should use those to bless other people. So ta-da, let's make jobs. And it has been a wonderful adventure. I started a 3D printing business. We sold to Stryker, student information software business. We did a management buyout with, because I wanted the employees to be able to build wealth for their family and kind of build the business with ownership. And then I sold an economics firm and we sold to a variety of different businesses. So I really got some cool experiences. Not all of them overly pleasant, but some wonderful experiences building businesses. So
Okay.
did that. In the meantime, married my wonderful wife. She's basically Dr. Crapuchettes, and I'm sub GED Crapuchettes.
There you go.
And so we make a good team because I paid for her degrees.
There you go.
And then
Isn't that
that's
how
got
it
to
always
count for
goes?
something. We have 5 kids. Oldest is 20, youngest is 13. 3 big dogs, live on 60 acres, 10 minutes from the office. It is the Idaho dream. So
That's
there you go.
amazing.
There's the quick run through on Andrew Crapuchettes.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, well, going back to like your early 20s, it's crazy to think you were burnt out at 22. I
Right.
mean, that's pretty early to get burnt out in your career.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, I was traveling literally every week. So I was at that point, I was in charge of sales engineering for this company I was working for the West Coast in Asia. And
Okay.
so every single week I was in at least one, if not 2 different cities,
Hmm.
running training events for customers, doing demos, kind of doing what we called benchmarks because it was a computer automated design software company. So CAD. And so we would do these big designed off things where they'd like, hey, can your 3D software beat the competitor's 3D software? And so I'd go spend 3 days at the customer site, like building stuff for Applied Materials in 3D or Triad Speakers or all these
Hmm.
really cool companies. And it was basically they would give us plans and they'd say, who can build these plans in 3D faster? And so I was like this CAD jock. And so I'd come in and I'd do this thing and you just grind and work as many hours as you could stay awake. And then the next week I'd be off in Tokyo working with our reseller over there doing a 2-week training.
Man,
And then, and yeah, I was
sounds
like,
like they squeezed every ounce of your youth out of you.
yeah, and I loved it. I mean, I was strapped in. I was and honestly, turning 21 in an expense account was kind of cool. I'll be
Yeah.
honest. Like,
Yeah.
and I didn't get drunk and do the things you could have done, but
Yeah.
I
Sure.
really like I'd be like, well, I'm in Tokyo, and we're going out to dinner with partners, and I have
Yeah.
an expense account, and my expense account almost had no limit because we had all this VC money.
Sure.
And so they're like, I'm like, you guys want wine with dinner? And they're
Yeah.
like, sure. And I'm like, I don't know. This $400 bottle looks pretty good, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've never
Like,
been to Tokyo, so it's $400. It must
yeah,
be
like
what they do
whatever. That
here.
seems good. And then, and then we're doing like karaoke after. I mean, those
Of course.
people in Tokyo know how to work hard. Like
Yeah.
we would start at 7 in the morning. We'd go till 7 in the night
Yeah.
at the office. Then we would go out to dinner. Then we would go out to karaoke. And then they would drink more, and then we would do it again the next day. And I was like, holy moly,
You
I
got to be
need a
young
little
for
bit of
that.
rest. And and I'm having this exotic sushi,
Yeah.
and like it was exhausting. Super fun experience. And I remember sitting. I won't digress too much, but I remember I was sitting at this karaoke bar. It's under the highway in Tokyo, so you kind of go down these stairs, and it's like
Mhm.
under the road, right? And everybody has their own little liquor locker. So, and
It's
so
like a like a
and I was
country
like, well,
club.
yeah, and of course I'm 21, or
Yeah.
or actually the first time I went to Tokyo for business I was 19, and they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're fine, here, have a drink. But we're in this liquor locker, and then there's these gentlemen singing Beach Boys songs like
Yep.
"These coast girls are hip," and I'm sitting there and I'm like, where am I? Like I'm this like homeschool kid from California. I'm like, but it was amazing, right?
Yeah.
Incredible experience, and a lot of the long hours were my choices, right? Because
Mhm.
I just love to work hard. I like to solve problems,
Yeah.
and I got experiences and wealth generation that I couldn't have gotten in any other
That's
way.
right.
And so, I would
High
actually
osmosis
recommend it
almost.
to a young man to bust tail, figure out what it feels like to work like that. It's
Mhm.
not healthy to do it long term once you have a family, but in the short term, there's a lot that can be gained by that level of intense labor for a business.
Yeah. Now, when you moved to Idaho, you started this company helping people find jobs or creating jobs. It was that Red Balloon, or was that came
No,
later?
yeah. So Red Balloon, this has been around for about 3 years now.
Okay.
So yeah, that business was a labor market data company, and I know that sounds like the labor market data economics, the dismal science. But what we were trying to do is create decision ready information at the point of decision for some of the biggest decisions in your life, right? You think about with your smartphone, you can look up where you should go to dinner tonight. You could look up where you're going to go on a vacation. Can you get a mortgage for your house? Like really big decisions. But if you're thinking about going to college, or you're thinking about taking on some new skills for your kind of personal skill portfolio, which ones are going to be have the biggest impact on your earning potential for the rest of your life, right? If you're a Java developer, should you learn Hadoop or SQL? Should
Yeah.
you learn, right? And there's no real
Yeah.
data or framework to be able to make that good decision out there. And if you're going into college, it is an overwhelming thing. So we created an enormous amount of labor market data. We basically dissected the entire labor market of the U.S. economy, all down to 42,000 zip codes and all of the skills and job titles that are out there, so that you could start to see trends. You could start to see which ones were paying better. And I'll give you an example. So I was in an Uber in Seattle, and this kid's driving me around, and I always make polite conversation. I'm like, so, hey, talk to me about your life. What are you doing? He's like, well, I'm going to Seattle Central Community College. I'm getting an AA degree, and then I plan to go to UW and get a psychology degree. And I'm like, interesting. Why do you want to do that? And he's like, well, I feel like if I know myself, people want to hire me. And this is kind of my moment, like, okay, do I just shut down, focus on my email, or destroy his dreams? And some dreams just need to die. Let's just be honest. So I'm like, so that's great. Something you should know is I'm kind of in the labor market data space, and an undergrad in psychology is the highest unemployed degree in America today. So
Facts.
employers will not hire you because of that. And I actually know that with empirical data. Unless you get a graduate degree in psychology, it is basically a useless piece of paper. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah.
He's like, I guess I have to go to grad school.
Yeah, I'm like, you got to go to grad school. I'm like, and I pull out my phone. I'm like, let me run you through a little bit of labor market data here. Let's do an assessment.
Yeah.
Let's kind of figure out where you want to be, right? So I run him through this thing, and he goes through our assessment, which also was tying in labor market data on where demand was in the market, what paying was, what the skills, et cetera. And he's like, oh, it says that graphic design might be a good fit for me. Is that even a career? And I'm like, well, of course it's a career, but you think about someone who has grown up, maybe they don't have a family or a father figure or anyone who's kind of speaking into their life. How are they going to learn anything about careers except for watching detective shows on TV?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I want to be a detective or a rock star or a photographer. And
basically,
I don't know what else there is. Right. And so he's like, oh, graphic design. That's fascinating. I would love that. I'm like, right. And there is a certificate at Seattle Central Community College where you're already enrolled. And if you come out of that program with that certificate, here are 19 employers in your area that are currently paying $40 an hour for that skill set. And it's just like it's a huge amount of data I brought to a point that was able to advise him. And it was decision ready information at the point of decision. He's like, you just realize you just saved me 2 years and $100,000 in debt.
It's amazing.
Just with a small amount of information, because he didn't know that graphic design was a career that he could pursue and get really good at. Right. So anyway.
And then after the 2 years being completely lost, because there's still no answer.
That's right. And then you're going to be a barista because there's really nothing you can do with that degree. Right. Yeah. So anyway, so that was kind of my passion, is like, how do I give people decision ready information for one of the most important decisions in their life? Because, you know, your career is a defining feature of who you are. If you meet someone new, you ask them, like, what do you do? And it turns out you're asking what their job is, but that question, what do you do, portrays that a job's not just a 9-to-5 hobby. It is defining, it's your career, it's your vocation. It defines who you are and what you bring to the world. How are you blessing other people? And so I thought, man, if we can help people make better decisions about some of the biggest pieces of their life, then they'll be successful. So we sold that data to big HR departments, to colleges, to universities, to chambers of commerce, to city government. So many people who just need to know what's going on in their economy, what businesses are trending. Like, you know, another example there was a Maytag, I think it was Maytag plant that closed with 1,500 workers in a town in Iowa. And they had like 9,000 people in the whole town. So this town, you know, basically the town was about to go away. And I'm like, okay, so you actually have a valuable asset right now. You have a bunch of workers who have a huge amount of skills. let's inventory the skills of those workers, and let's go out and find businesses that are actually looking for those skills. So you have an empty building, you have a ton of skilled workers who have a short runway, or else they're going to have to move and go find a job somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So you economic development for this city, you need to use this data to figure out what businesses you could attract to the area that would want to hire those people and use that building. And they're going to see it as falling into a chocolate pie because, hey, guess what? There are 300 people who are ready to go and know how to work productively together.
Yeah.
Would you like to do that? Right. Anyway, so we found 5 other businesses. So we didn't have just the ones. You didn't have this, customer concentration or business concentration.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody got to stay in their town. They had to do a little bit of retooling of their skills, and then ta-da, the town survived. Like the town would have gone away without
That's
good
crazy.
use of data, which is kind of wild, but there
Yeah,
it
it
is.
is. That's crazy. That's awesome. What an impact. And so how does that connect with what you're doing with Red Balloon?
Yeah. So I had this business. We built it to about a $50 million business. A lot of great customers, great employees. We were growing 25% a year with a 40% margin. Like it was a good business.
Good business.
Yeah. But I'd sold most of my ownership to various people. So I had like a little like 2% ownership, and then I was
Okay.
CEO. But I was happy, got paid good money to do work that I enjoyed doing.
Mm-hmm.
You can't ask for more than that. 2020 comes around and my board decides that I'm a little too conservative and Christian for their liking.
Hmm.
And so while we didn't have any performance problems, in fact, we grew through 2020.
Mm-hmm.
They decided I didn't have the right social media, political correct profile.
Okay.
And so they basically told me, you're welcome to kind of, continue to be the CEO if you dial down everything else about your life. And I'm like, that sounds like you don't want me to bring my whole self to work. So no, thank you. I'll pass. So I ended up leaving there in early 2021. Not my favorite, call it period of my life, when you get fired from a business you love and you started.
Yeah.
But I'm like, that's okay. I'll take a year off. I got a severance. I'm going to play some golf, hang with my kids. Worse things have happened to people.
Sure.
But then a friend kind of challenged me and said, look, you were just given a choice between your job and your values. And I had the financial wherewithal to not worry about losing my job, and could easily stick with my values. It's a lot easier decision for me when I'm not worried about paying my mortgage, right? But for a lot of conservatives and Christians, if you're given that choice of job or values, and you're really deciding, can I continue to feed my kids and pay my mortgage? Well, you're at least going to be tempted to compromise on something you hold very dearly.
Mm-hmm.
And so, this friend kind of challenged me. They're like, you need to help those people out. You've been obviously put in this position, go do something. So I'm like, fine, I will create a job board. I will call it Red Balloon, because have you ever been on a hot air balloon?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So if you go on a hot air balloon, and those who are listening who have, it's very quiet up there, unless you're in a major storm, but it's very quiet because you're just going with the wind. You don't have a lot of control. The way you control those things, which I found when I went on one the first time, is you basically go up and down to try and find wind that's going the right direction, and then just kind of go with that.
Gotcha.
Makes sense, kind of cool, but
Yeah.
you don't have a ton of control. It's not an airplane, it's not a helicopter, any of those things. And it feels a lot like the job searching process. It's super quiet, you're getting ghosted all the time, and you're going somewhere you just don't know where, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're like, well, and there's people moving to red states. There's this great kind of, divide that's happening in the US where this migration is happening. You see people moving to red businesses where they can be free, where they can live their values out loud, where meritocracy reigns and DEI doesn't. So we're like, okay, well, it kind of describes the process. So we'll call it Red Balloon. Ta-da. But I thought, I'm just going to make the job board. My brother and I are going to make it on a weekend, which we did, kind of a tech background. I'm going to make some videos, put them on LinkedIn so people know about it. And then, I did my thing. I'm not trying to start another business, but I get this call from Fox and Friends, like 2 months into this little experiment. And we have like 20 businesses on there, maybe 1,000 job seekers. Like it's in the world of job boards, it's a nothing burger. And so I'm like, yeah, fine. Like, cause I'm not really running a business. I'm, and I have a housing development and commercial real estate. I got a bunch of things I've got doing. So, I wasn't trying to do it. And so Fox and Friends calls and said, hey, we want to interview you because you have the nation's largest job board that doesn't have a vaccine mandate for businesses that don't have a vaccine mandate.
Yeah.
And my stance on that was like, look, if you're an adult, if you want to get a vaccine, knock yourself out. But that's a conversation you should probably have with your doctor, not your HR department.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of like, if you want to post jobs, you need to not have a vaccine mandate, and employees can come and find folks like that, right? No problem. So Fox and Friends calls me up. They're like, hey, can we interview on this? I'll be honest, I don't find the news that interesting. And so I didn't even know who Fox and Friends was. I thought this was a kid's show.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Mr. Weasel, what do you want to do today?
Yeah.
I'm like, sure, I'll come on your show. I'm like, oh, it's kind of a big deal. So anyway, go on Fox.
Just for the record, you're saying that Fox in that case would be the main character and the Weasel would be the friend.
That's exactly
okay.
it.
All right.
Exactly it. Like, I know, but it's like, if you don't know what it is, you don't know what Fox News is, and you're like, Fox and Friends. That sounds a lot like a kid's show, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Anyway,
yes, it does.
so I'm like, I don't know what it is. So I go on Fox and Friends. Yes, it was a big deal. And yes, I added like 100 businesses within the first hour and 40,000 job seekers. And then I was on Glenn Beck, and then I was on lots of other Fox shows, and One American Network and Newsmax and all these shows and radio stations. And I've now done like, I don't know, 500 media interviews in the last 3 years.
Kind of amazing how many people wanted to talk to you.
Well, I was saying something pretty revolutionary.
That's what I'm saying. It's
freedom,
amazing, though.
right? Which is good. So anyway, so we do that. And then all of a sudden I've got thousands of employers, and I've got literally over 1 million job seekers who are on this Red Balloon platform. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm doing this now. So I accidentally started Red Balloon, but it's gone pretty well. So we now are a job board. So you can just post jobs and you can go find jobs, and it's just matchmaking service for conservative, center right businesses and job seekers. Piece of cake. And then about 18 months ago, we had some of our customers like Louder with Crowder come to us and say, hey, would you just take over the recruitment process? Because we want you to handle the writing job descriptions, compensation review, interview process, the whole shoot and match. We only want to talk to people who you think are ready to go and good for the job, because at the time you needed a showrunner. I'm like, sure, we will do that. You know, as you're an entrepreneur, a new business, you say yes a lot. And so we started doing that. And then we realized, the recruitment process is super broken, because the reason that businesses use an outsourced recruiter is because they don't like posting jobs. They don't like the post and pray thing. It's really painful. If you post and pray on Indeed, you're going to get thousands of people to apply. Then you're going to have to go through those candidates to look for the 3 that are worth talking to. If you post on a niche job board like a Red Balloon, you're not going to get a ton of candidates, but you're going to get good people generally. But you're not going to get the same flow of people you're going to get from a massive job board like Indeed. Right. And so they're like, fine, I'm going to go to a recruiter. But recruiters generally charge 20 to 40% of the first year salary for the first year compensation for the person that they place in your company. And I know a lot of really good people in recruiting, but there is a perverse incentive that is introduced there, because all of a sudden the recruiter would like you to hire the most expensive person possible. Again, there are good people. Not everybody does that, but there's at least a temptation based on those kind of incentives. So we wanted to do it different. So we do a flat $4,500 to do a recruitment process. And a good example of this, national religious broadcasters needed a CFO. They went to a recruiter who said it's going to cost them $50,000 to $70,000 to fill that one position. And they're like, we are a nonprofit and we cannot afford $50,000 to $70,000. So they come to Red Balloon. And so for $4,500, we run the process. We have a $4,500 success fee in the back end. So for under $10,000, we filled that position. And the founder, CEO of the organization is like, so you just saved me $50,000. And I know that I got a values aligned person who also has the skill set necessary to make my company successful. And in fact, he's like, it's also interesting that the type of people that Red Balloon brings are the type of people who you don't have to worry about them leaving 3 or 6 months later. They're people who actually want to work. They are there because they believe in what the organization is doing. They want to work. And so help keep them from a lawsuit, help get them a good person, and save them $50,000. That feels like a win-win-win. So
and then how much money do you really save them in the future?
That's right.
With all these,
when they have to do it again in 6 months or have a lawsuit or whatever it is, right? That's really cool. So we've done like 350 positions in the last year for companies all over the map, everyone from Tucker Carlson to small construction company in Colorado. where we can kind of fill that position. We're actively going out and finding the right people for you. So job board, recruitment services, and then we just launched our applicant tracking system, our ATS, just last month. And we've already implemented it with a number of businesses, and we're super fired up about that.
That's
Anyway,
awesome.
that was a long answer to a short question, but
It was
that
also
is
it
the
was
Red
also
Balloon Adventure.
a very long intro to a short podcast.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Now that
But
we're
here
halfway
we are
through.
now, 24 minutes in,
Yeah, right.
and we're going to now jump into our discussion. But I'll go back and record another intro to let people know they can jump right here if they want to. But now let's get into the discussion, because I think that's a huge amount of value for context to what we're about to discuss.
Yeah.
And I think now I want to just pour out the value from you to our founder CEOs that are watching, and they want insights in how to not hire a time bomb. And in our pre-call, you said, I think I wrote down, you said, don't hire people with culture C4 strapped to their chest. Those are wise words. But now, how do they not do that?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Yeah, there's a couple things you can do. So, and the stat that should scare all of us is that 75% of employers have had a labor-based lawsuit in the last 5 years. 75% of employers, labor-based lawsuit. And that can be from the hiring process. That could be the interview process. A lot of it is from people you've already hired. You're paying money, and they're effectively a traitor, or it feels like that. And if you're an employer who's doing a really bad thing, you should get a lawsuit. Like, you deserve that. But the vast majority of those, that is not the case at all. And it's instead a snowflake that's trying to take down your business. So how do you avoid that? So there's a couple things that I encourage people to focus on. The first one is give the hiring process the time and energy that it deserves. I know that, even as an entrepreneur, someone who knows better, I have been like, oh my word, I am so desperate to fill this position. I am so like over my head with work. As long as a person fogs up a mirror, I'm going to hire them. And so they come in, they fog the mirror. Great, you're hired. Get to work. That's a huge mistake because you're hiring someone. I mean, you're going to spend tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars in salary over the years. They are part of your organization, your people, your culture. That is how your customers interact with you. It's how your suppliers interact with you. So that is not something that should be taken lightly. And if you make a bad hire, it's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars to try and get rid of that person. So the first thing is put the time and effort into it. We recommend 20 to 30 hours for a hiring process for a specific position. That is helping to find that position well, helping to find your values and your culture well, and I'll get to that in a second. It's also going out there and doing that recruiting process. It's screening. It's doing multiple interviews to make sure that you're actually talking to the right people. You think about it, if you have 5 people apply and you do a 30-minute interview with 3 different people for each of those 5, well, all of a sudden you've got 15 30-minute interviews that you need to schedule. And then you need to make sure that you're really digesting that information well to make a good decision. Then you need to onboard them well so they understand your culture and your values. You just need to strap in for 20 to 30 hours to hire a person, or you need to hire someone like Red Balloon or someone else who can do that for you. So that's the first thing, is just make sure, don't cut the hiring process short. Don't be chintzy on that. It will cost you way more than you are saving by doing it that way.
Okay.
So that's the first
having
one.
Having
a process, make sure you run the process, give it the time and energy you need. And then the second one is having a process. So we encourage our employers to live your values out loud in the way you do your hiring. So when I was a CEO of that large business doing the labor market data, I was the final interview for as many of the employees as I could. I wasn't always, but for the most part I was. And I just wanted to make sure they were going to be a culture fit, but then I also wanted to give them a full disclosure. I said, look, I'm an unapologetic conservative Christian in the way that I run this business. That's who I am. It's not a prerequisite. It's not a weird thing. Everyone is welcome here, but this is who I am, and this is how I'm going to run my business. And I only had in 15 years 2 people say, I'm not super comfortable with that. I'm like, you know what? Then we've probably both saved ourselves a lot of time and effort. Yeah. But as my lawyer told me, I was effectively being the contents of this cup might be hot, like the McDonald's cup, right? Where it says it might be hot. That way, if you burn yourself, you can't sue them
Hmm.
because they already told you it's hot. They did a full disclosure on some of the risks or
Right.
issues that might be associated with it. Same thing. If you're a business that believes in meritocracy, or you're a Christian or a conservative, or if you're a liberal, be out front about who you are and the work culture that you're trying to accomplish. And that way people can make an eyes open decision before they take the job.
Hmm.
And then if they do, they can't sue you for it later. Like they can't come back 6 months later and say, you prayed at the Christmas dinner. And so I'm going to sue you for that. I'll be like, I told you I was an unapologetic conservative Christian. So
Yeah.
deal with it. Right. And so
Yes.
we basically didn't have any labor-based lawsuits. We had a couple of employees who tried that, very few, I think maybe two, and they didn't go anywhere because we had kind of crossed our T's and dotted our I's of living our values out loud. So they didn't have anywhere to go. So it feels terrifying. You're like, man, are we going to lose customers? Are we going to? You'd be surprised. People are attracted to people. To businesses who actually know who they are and
Hmm.
actually believe in a thing, right? You don't have to push your worldview on everyone. You don't have to hand out tracts in the office. You
Hmm.
just need to be confident in who you are and what you believe. So I'd say give the hiring process the time and energy that it deserves, and live your values out loud in that hiring process. And just those two things, and I can, help outline a hiring process. We have put a
Yeah,
lot of
sure.
time and energy into that, but just doing those two things will have an enormous impact on the quality of hires that you get and the mitigation of lawsuits or legal concerns.
Yeah. Okay. And this may have been what you were covering just now, but we talked about, positioning yourself to capitalize on good people who fit your culture and grow your business. Is there anything else you could give the audience about that sort of pre-planning? They
Yeah.
have to have a process they're going to follow up, but like, you know, I would think like getting your core people around and saying, who are we as a company? And, what are we mapping to as a culture? What does that look like?
Yeah. So, and we actually walked through this process when we were doing a recruiting for a customer, because it's super important. You need to have an employment brand that everybody within your organization understands. So, and you hear like employment brand, really, does that absolutely make sense? Well, the thing is, when you want to get a new customer, you're going to focus on your branding. You're going to focus on making sure that they hear about that branding all the time. They say that the seventh time someone hears about your business, they actually remember the name and think, okay, maybe I could work with those people,
Hmm.
right? And I don't even know if seven's the right number. It's probably higher now with all the bombardment of content that we're getting all the time. But
Hmm.
regardless, there's a certain number of times that all of a sudden they're going to resonate with that brand. If you want to hire the best people, you need to have an employment brand. You need to be an employer that people want to work for because they know you exist. They know you have a great culture. They know other people there, and you have clearly articulated what that culture is. When I was running the labor market data company, we did a lot of job posting analytics. So we'd look at job postings out there and try and look at trends that were associated with those. And one of the things we saw was this posting intensity. Basically, if you're going to post a job on ZipRecruiter, Indeed, and Monster.com, you're going to pay for all three of those job postings. And so if a company is paying for a job posting on multiple locations, they're clearly trying to get people for
Hmm.
that one position. And so that tells you something about how desperate they are to fill this, or how hard they have to work to try and get the right talent inside their four walls.
Hmm.
Microsoft, when I was doing this analysis several years ago, they had 12 job postings for every opening within Microsoft. So they had 12-to-1 ratio, which means they were spending a lot of money, putting a lot of effort, sorting through a lot of candidates from all these different platforms to try and get one good person within their organization. Whereas Tesla had a 2-to-1. So instead of them working so hard, they didn't have to work as hard to get good talent because they had an employment brand. People knew about Tesla. They wanted to work for Tesla. They're like, Tesla's innovating.
Hmm.
Tesla's changing the world. Tesla's right. So their employment brand was so strong that they didn't have to worry as much about getting the right people
Yeah.
because they knew they were going to be attracted to them. So that's the first thing. So an employment brand.
Okay.
And then the second thing is we call it a talent network. And think of a talent network as kind of like your email drip campaign you use to try and engage customers and try and sell them things, right?
Hmm.
You want to have a bench or a squad of people who would like to work for you at some point in the future. And so we build talent networks at Red Balloon, but there's a number of organizations or tools out there that you can use. But basically, you want to have a group of super fans, hundreds of people who've raised their hand and said, I would like to work for you someday because they've engaged in your employment brand and they know you're kind of type of company you want to work for. Think about that, how magical it would be instead of starting from scratch every time you want to hire. If you're like, well, I've got 1,000 people over here who've already raised their hand and said they want to work for me. They're engaged in my employment brand. I've already put them on a monthly drip campaign about what we're doing at our organization. Like, that is the way to hire.
That's
So
huge.
yeah, it's amazing. So we help businesses do that. We did it for PragerU, and they had 50 people join their talent network just
That's so
voluntarily
cool.
in the first week, right?
Yeah,
And
it's like a
now
waiting list. You're
it's
building
a
that
waiting
demand.
list. Yeah, and think about it. Like, you understand that in sales, like you
Mm-hmm.
want customers who are engaged in your brand.
Mm-hmm.
Man, you want employees who are engaged in your brand, and that's going to save you a lot of heartache, a lot of time, a lot of energy, and it's going to shorten that process. The 20 to 30 hours I
Yeah.
talked about earlier.
Yeah.
It's going to save that, and it's going to start to shrink that. So, employment brand, talent network are what the best businesses are doing today to get the right people inside their four walls.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that before, and I like that concept a lot. I mean, it resonates a lot with me because I'm a marketer, and all we're trying to do is build demand, and that makes a lot of sense. Especially getting them on an email newsletter or some kind of campaign where you can nurture them so that when it's ready, you can call them
Mm-hmm.
up. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So there you go. So those are the big things that we focus on for businesses. We help them, articulate who you are so that you have an employment brand out there,
Mm-hmm.
build that talent network, and hiring just gets a lot easier when you
Yeah,
do that work ahead of time. And that's way before
can
you
imagine.
find a position. But it's really important work.
Yeah, this has been great. I mean, all of it. It's been really eye opening and very valuable. So thanks for that. If I want to send people your way, obviously redballoon.com.
Redballoon.work.
Dot work.
.com
Okay.
is a great place to buy balloons, party balloons.
Okay.
Uh, and I felt like com sounded too much like communism, and we don't want communists. We
Oh
want
yeah.
work.
Yeah.
And so redballoon.work,
I like it.
WORK. And the other thing I would recommend is if you follow me on LinkedIn, I try and put out a meaningful post every day about building culture, about hiring
Mhm.
employees, about things that are helpful. So there aren't a lot of Andrew Crapuchettes out there. So as
That's
long as
true.
you type it in, you're
First
going
one
to
I've
find
met.
me. Yeah. Yeah. There's no problem with that. So I would go to redballoon.work. There's a lot of great resources there for employers and for job seekers. We put out things like an employee bill of rights and responsibilities, which is a
Cool.
document written by our labor lawyer talking about, what responsibilities do employees have and what rights do they have in the process. So we want our employers and our job seekers to be better educated, better
That's a great
informed, and have the
resource.
tools they need to be successful. So
Yeah, I
a lot
love
of
that.
great free stuff out there. And we just want to be a blessing to people who want to just have meaningful work, want to show up, do their job, and be a blessing to their community and their economy.
Yeah, love it. Thanks, Andrew. This has been great.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Lee, and have a great day, everybody.